Historic Broussard's. The courtyard's gorgeous. Restaurant is legendary. In the historic French Quarter, are you kidding me? 819 Conti Street. Cook it, bring it, eat it. We'll eat forever. Man, you got to be kidding me if you're going to do that. Goodness gracious, I'm already putting on weight, but it's great here at Broussard's, 819 Conti Street. Hope you'll come visit sometime soon. If you haven't been anytime recently, you will not be disappointed when you come again. Awesome restaurant, tremendous tradition. Came here all the time with my dad at a younger age and have come back recently, and it's great. sportsNOLAtv, Ken Trahan with you from Broussard's. Glad to have you with us. And of course, as always, we'll run the gamut from the Saints to LSU to Tulane to prep football and much, much more. And we'll do so with our regulars, including our co-hosts, Brian Allee-Walsh of sportsNOLA.com. Brian, good evening to you.
Kenny, always a pleasure, my friend, and it's good to be here at Broussard's. I echo your sentiments about this restaurant. It's a great restaurant, and thank God we have the Tigers in the state of Louisiana this year.
My other co-host, of course, former New Orleans Saint wide receiver and went on to play in the NFL for about 18,000 other teams as well, and did a good job. Just ask him, and he'll keep you here forever. Torrance Small. Torrance, a pleasure, my friend.
Hey, glad to be back, Kenny. The only thing is, not under these circumstances. I hate to be here on these circumstances, but glad to see you guys again.
Our special guest here today, well, he really loves us for asking him to come after the way the Saints have played so far. Kind of reminds him of his own playing days, I think. It's one of those deals. He's a Saints Hall of Famer, a Missouri Hall of Famer in the state of Missouri, and he played for the Saints for 13 years, 8th most games in the history of the franchise, and he thinks the flex defense would work. Derland Moore. Derland?
Well, they ran the flex, didn't they? Didn't they run the flex Sunday? Because they flexed all the way to the end zone.
Yeah, they flexed quite a bit. It was a reasonable facsimile of the flex. I couldn't help but get that in. It was just kind of fun. Did you play the under tackle?
I played under tackle, over tackle, underneath the tackle, whatever. I mean, whatever defense known to man, I played it.
But he did play, and he played quite well, unlike what we saw from the Saints defense, which we'll get into in the highlights of the Saints and Panthers when we return in just a moment from historic Broussard's in the historic French Quarter, 819 Conti Street on sportsNOLAtv. Glad you've joined us this evening. Number there as you look at it, only 3 that allowed 75 points in the modern era, the Super Bowl era, if you will, have gone on to play for the league championship. So that's what the Saints face, some daunting numbers to say the least, but then again, they've put themselves in this position. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv from Broussard's, 819 Conti in the historic French Quarter. Hope you'll come by and enjoy the incredible food that they have. More coming up on that. Right now, we'll have more on the Saints and Panthers game and the loss that took place in Charlotte. Torrance, we'll start with you. And clearly, this is a team. We said last week that they deserved a mulligan because they're a proven commodity. And they really have been an outstanding football team for the past several years. They certainly don't look like an outstanding football team right now. Why?
One thing I see is we're lacking leadership. I think we have a lot of leaders on the team, but we don't have that. We don't have the character of anyone. I think Cromer, he could be a great coach, but it's not his team. He cannot cut anybody. He has no. He cannot cut or fire anyone. He doesn't have that type of power, and these guys know that. You know, they make mistakes and they come off, and it's like it's not much of nothing. I see guys. Are they playing hard? Yes. Are they playing for their jobs? No. And I think that's the difference. Guys need to start playing for their jobs, and they know this guy, he cannot do anything to them. And I think if we get a coach, I think when Vic comes back, I think you'll see a better team. I think we'll see a much better team because I think they respect him a little bit more. But here you have a guy came in on the fly. I feel bad for him because I hear that he's a pretty good coach, and he had an opportunity perhaps to be a head coach sometime.
You know, I think you raised a good point, and I'm going to take it to the roster. All right. I mean, if you look at the things, injuries, and I'm not making excuses for this football team, but when you remove Marcus Colston is not healthy at this moment. Devery Henderson was out of the lineup, and so you're playing with Joe Morgan and Courtney Roby and Greg Camarillo. So you've got three essentially that are not frontline receivers in an offense that is as potent as there has been in the National Football League. On defense, you're still playing with a rebuilt linebacking core. I'm not convinced. I tell you what, you look at the middle of the defensive line with Cedric Ellis and Broderick Bunkley, and I look for either one to make a play. And then the back end of the secondary, when are these safeties going to make a play? They have some inherent problems on defense, and I don't know if they can fix it this year unless they play better.
Derland is a defensive lineman, regardless of what the scheme is. What you watched yesterday, they got whipped up front. What did you see and why?
Well, they got whipped because they're just not playing very well. I saw some defensive linemen that looked like they were playing DB. They were knocked off the line. There was holes that was open that you could drive a bus through on the goal line, which never should happen.
That's the one I'm thinking of, Daryl, the goal line.
And I mean, they're just not playing as well as the unit. And I don't see very much pressure on the quarterback, the opposing quarterback. You can't let a guy, especially Cam Newton, I mean, sit in there and pick you to pieces. I mean, that guy's great.
You know, Derland, in 08, they made the change to go from a reactive coordinator in Gary Gibbs to a proactive coordinator in Greg Williams. And obviously, they had to make a change with Greg Williams. That said, Spags is a good coach. He has got a proven track record, and it's going to take a while, I think, for these guys to feel comfortable and acclimate themselves in his scheme. That said, I wonder if we're a year away from, they've got it. I don't know if they have the right people on defense. And I think it goes beyond 0-2. I do. Yes. I really do.
I think you hit it on the head. Now, one thing we talked about last year, we always said this team was a better schemer than talent. I don't think the talent is here. I think we need better talent up front. If you could have a better talent up front, it takes care of the linebacker and the defensive backs. And I think that's what we're missing right now. A good somebody that demand a double team up front, and we don't have that. We don't have that superstar.
You can't have a defensive lineman give it knocked back into the linebacker.
No, you can't have that.
That kills it. I mean, that negates the whole defense.
But let's talk about the other side of it, because we all know we have a Pro Bowl type offensive line, and Drew Brees has been under pressure in both of these games. And that's kind of disappointing to me.
Right.
That's something that we're getting whooped on both sides up front, and I think that is one of the main reasons we're 0-2 right now.
You hit the nail on the head. We're lacking leadership, and it's leadership from the coach. And I mean,
yes.
Just like you said, I mean, the offensive line coach who's the head coach right now, he didn't ask for this. He did
exactly.
it for the team.
Exactly.
And he's doing the best he can. But on the other side of the coin, I mean, you know, if you would jump off sides or something like that, like when Sean Payton was on the sidelines, he let you sit on the bench for a while.
That's right.
That doesn't happen right now. And I mean, they're making mental mistakes that was never tolerated when Payton was on the field. And they miss him bad.
Well, you look at the situation, Brian, and they have what they have. The players are the players. You can't change them all when you come in if you're Spagnuolo. You look at the scheme and what he's trying to do, it's almost a square peg in a round hole when you look at some of the respective skills of the players he inherits. I guess the classic case in point would be Roman Harper. Where is he most effective? In the box, playing the run, and blitzing. And in this scheme, he's been caught in zone coverage quite a bit and occasionally in man coverage. And this isn't a knock on him, but that's not his strength, and you know that. And they signed him to an extension. So he's here. And you've got to fit talent into what you can do or change the talent. And obviously, this is a situation that's going to manifest itself over time. Right?
There's another deal on this. The defenses in the NFL are not playing well at all right now because they've got all these concussions that they're nailing them for fines, for helmet hits, and you're seeing scores. You're seeing scores all over the NFL that are high because the receivers no longer fear going across the middle. They no longer fear getting greased. I mean, because they're not. I mean, you can't hit them with the helmet. I mean, and the defenses are playing passively right now. So that combined with the situation that we're in, I mean, it's kind of disastrous for us right now.
Can come back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you know, Kenny, back to your point for a second. if that's the agreement of the panel, and it seems like, is that they maybe don't have the personnel to play Spags' defense right now. So what do? Do you adapt the defense to fit your personnel, which is what you do in colleges and what you're supposed to do if you don't have it? I don't know. It's just you just watch this defense play, and they seem to be back on their heels. It's not a real proactive kind of defense that we've seen in the past, and unless it takes place, it's not going to happen.
If you go back to the Super Bowl season, Torrance, it's not like they had great defensive linemen. They had competent guys that interchanged and did a decent job. Otherwise, if you look at the changes since then, Scott Fujita, who was a nice player, not a great player, but probably better than what they've had.
Yes.
And then, of course, in the secondary, the one difference maker, Darren Sharper, who they've never replaced.
Which was big, which is huge. It's not much difference. But the thing that we talked about, again, we were a better schemer than we were talented.
But you know what, and Derland, you know this because you play defense, is that when talking to the players over the last 3 years on the Greg Williams scheme, players like to be aggressive. And you cannot deny that Greg Williams was an aggressive coach. He preached aggression. And I just wonder if sometimes in a scheme, you remove that from a player, that you're supposed to be a zone in the secondary or zone coverage. And that's a reactive kind of approach to defense, unlike it was under Greg Williams, which was get after him, we're bringing pressure, you're gonna feel our heat all day long. Now, it was a risk-reward defense, but...
Exactly. But the thing is, because you play zone don't mean you're not an aggressive defense.
No.
Because if we want to talk about it, we can go to the Chicago Bears. I don't think it's a more aggressive team out there than the Chicago Bears, and they play cover 2 the whole time. You know what they run, Tampa 2. So I don't think it's so much as that. It's just the attitude of the players have to be aggressive.
Yeah, there were some good players in Derland's defense when they played that flex, and the flex wasn't any good. The scheme wasn't that great. Joe Fetterspiel was a good player. Tommy Myers was a great player. Derland Moore was a heck of a player. Lois Grooms was a heck of a player.
You know, the thing about it is that we had Mike Foltz, who's a good defensive lineman,
good.
but Mike never did figure out the flex. He was always asking me where he was at and which hole he had.
And I mean,
maybe that's what's wrong with these guys.
I don't
They
know.
think it too much. Maybe
I
these
don't
guys
know.
don't think
scheme
it too
does
much.
make a difference. You got to have players, but scheme makes a difference. That is the consensus beyond a shadow of a doubt. We got to take a break. When we return, we'll take a trip around the NFL as we continue with Sports NOLA TV from Broussard's at 819 Conti in the historic French Quarter. Sports NOLA TV trivia question, always fun. Darren Sproles had 13 catches against Carolina. And our trivia question is, who holds the Saints' single game record of 14 receptions in a game? Is it Reggie Bush, Joe Horn, Danny Abramowitz, or Tony Galbraith? Good choices. Good question by Lenny Van Gilder. Come up with the answer. We'll pass it on a little bit later in the show. Pass it on, no pun intended. Ken Trahan, Sports NOLA TV. Broussard's 819 Conti. Let me tell you something. You can join everyone here at Broussard's for the Kansas City game coming up this Sunday at noon. The bar opens at 9:30 a.m. It's a light menu including hamburgers, egg omelets, and available for all to enjoy. That's this Sunday. Come on by Broussard's and then head over to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Well, it's time to take a trip around the NFL, and here are some scores from this past weekend. The Thursday night game, Green Bay over Chicago 23-10, so the Packers back on track. Matt Forte got hurt again. Cincinnati got back on track. They beat Cleveland 34-27. It was Houston, very impressive team in the AFC, rolled over Jacksonville 27-7. The Buffalo Bills rebounded from a bad loss in Week 1 and ripped Kansas City 35-17. Chiefs limp into the Dome this Sunday. They're not very good. Indianapolis and how about Luck playing extremely well, beat Minnesota 23-20. How about Reggie Bush playing very well? Miami beat Oakland 35-13. Those cross-country trips are heck, right? Except when you're the Arizona Cardinals and you go cross-country and you win at New England. Who would have thunk it, right? Patrick Peterson, another pick, 20-18. Cardinals win it. Philadelphia rescued one and beat Baltimore 24-23. They're 2-0. That's a big win over a leading AFC team. How about the St. Louis Rams? Could have won Week 1 and looked good, and they did win over Washington. Saints couldn't do it. 31-28, Rams on top. Jeff Fisher's doing a good job. Giants rally from way back. Eli, a bad first half, a really good second half, and they beat Tampa Bay 41-34. And Dallas, they're still Dallas. Up 1 week, down the next. Seattle takes care of them easily, 27-7. Derland's a big Cowboys fan. And Pittsburgh over the Jets, 27-10. It was San Diego handling Tennessee, 38-10. San Diego's coming to New Orleans in a couple of weeks. And San Francisco, the best team in the NFL, in my mind, defeated Detroit 27-19. Monday night game, an intriguing game. Peyton Manning in Denver against the high-flying Atlanta Falcons. Should be fun to watch. So some interesting results. Big game tonight, coming up in about an hour or so. Brian, as you look at what's transpired this past weekend in the NFL, what got your attention more than anything else?
I think Arizona's win at New England,
Yes.
to travel across country like they did and to win like they did, with Kostrowski missing that 42-yard field goal, I guess, on nearly as time expired. Arizona's 2-0. The Saints are 0-2. Who would have thunk it? I mean, okay, that's a surprise. The Saints are the only NFC team that is winless. And then home teams dominated this past weekend, which is kind of wasn't that way in the first week. Those kind of three things stuck out.
Big surprise to me, the Cowboys. You know, I thought they might just turn the corner a little bit, but hey, you go down to Seattle and you give it up, turnovers and give it up. It's a little surprise to me.
Well, certainly I agree with Brian's premise about the Arizona Cardinals winning, certainly the biggest surprise, but I like what I'm seeing of the St. Louis Rams. They've got a healthy quarterback finally in Sam Bradford. They're scoring points. They scored big in week 1 and could have easily won. Lost it very, very late to Detroit, and then they turn around and they beat Washington, the team that the Saints couldn't beat the previous week. So coaching can make a difference. Good job indeed by the Rams and by Jeff Fisher, who's always been a good football coach. Derland, anything catch your eye this past weekend?
Yeah, Houston
really
Tactics.
good.
I'm telling you what, those guys are tough. They got a lot of talent. I think they're going to do something this year.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. Listen, they won a playoff game last year with their quarterback down. And obviously that makes a big difference when you have Schaub in there, who's a good, not great player, but good. But with his supporting cast, they seem to get better every year, Derland. Their defense is better. Their offense gets more pieces.
They're loaded with talent. They're going to do something. They're going to make some waves this year.
My Super Bowl pick here in New Orleans, Houston out of the AFC, San Francisco out of the NFC.
Well,
That's a good pick. Good
Thank
solid
you.
pick.
You like that?
that's not a stretch at
Now
all
that'll
right now.
change
That's pretty,
next week, though.
that could be chalk.
That's a good solid pick. But let's not count out these guys. What about the Tampa giving it up to the Giants at the end?
All right.
I thought it was a
They
great
played
game
better.
for
They've played
the
better.
Saints. It was great for the Saints because Tampa had this game. They
bet.
had this game and they gave it up.
Yeah.
Big ups to Eli on that.
Got to take
Would you
advantage of the
guys-
opportunities. Got to
Kenny-
do it. They didn't do it.
And esteemed panelists, would you guys explain to me the reception rule and making that athletic move? The Tampa Bay receiver, I thought they got homered there at the end. Remember on the play?
Yes.
I
Tough
thought
call.
it was a good
When they-
catch, okay?
Yes.
I just don't understand that rule. I'm sorry.
Brian,
I think they blew it.
Yeah, I do too.
I think they blew
thought
it.
that was a catch.
You've got some replacement officials in there right now, and they're not. I mean, the guy. I don't know what more of a football move you can make than what he did.
I don't get it.
And
Once you
so,
catch it to get 2 in, he was up. He got knocked down. It's not like he was going to the ground because that's what they're trying to say about the rule. He was going to the ground. No, he caught the ball, had to, and he got knocked down to the ground, which is a
I
difference.
think these guys, by and large, are doing a decent job. They're not the regular officials. They don't completely understand interpretation. The most obvious to me is pass interference calls. They're calling everything down the field on the defensive backs, but up the field, they're letting all kinds of contact happen. And in fact, people have been physical with the Saints receivers. And I think if the guys that normally call the games are there, they would call some of those up the field as illegal contacts. Let's take a look at the NFC South standings now. As Brian alluded to, the Saints are 0-2, but they're the only winless team in the NFC. Falcons have a chance to take the outright lead tonight. Panthers back on track. Bucks slip to 1-1. Some interesting matchups coming up in the conference. Atlanta has a cross-country trip after a Monday night game, which will be pretty tough for them. Well, I think tonight, Brian, will learn a lot. If the Falcons can take care of business against the Denver Broncos, then clearly, they're the favorite, as many national prognosticators talked about before the season started.
I agree with you, Kenny. And, you know, the thing that we've seen this Saints team in the past, and, you know, obviously these are different circumstances in which they're playing this season. But I don't know if they have enough to come back. And you make a great point. Atlanta can kind of make a good statement around the league today with a win on national prime time tonight.
Well, the way I look at this, we don't have to panic right now, but we do have to make some changes in our attitude, the way we play as far as the Saints. They're only one game behind. If Atlanta go and they lose this game, they're only one game out. Now, the one thing that can hurt them, they lost two conference games is what they lost. And I think coming to the end of this thing, when you're talking about playoffs and trying to get in, and those two NFC games that they lost can hurt them.
I was kidding earlier when I said Derland was a big Cowboys fan. Not at all. And those 83 and 84 games he played in against the Cowboys were just tore your heart out. But those 78 and 79 games against the Falcons, maybe even more so, D.
Atlanta Falcons, those games, I mean, especially when we had Atlanta beat, and then the official, Glover Klimber, whatever his name is, he throws.
You know his name?
Yeah. And he lived to slide out. I went looking for him.
Absolutely. Go ask Maurice Spencer about him. He still talks about him.
I mean, he blew the call. I mean, you know, he kept us from going to the playoffs that year. But it shouldn't have been that close to start with. But you know, it's just those games. But it's the way they did it. I mean, they rubbed their nose in it.
Russell Ertzlaman,
rubbed their nose in it. I mean, and it was horrible. I mean, it was not much. You had to bring it up, didn't you?
You're okay.
I don't know. Mean to bring back bad memories.
I don't know.
But, you know, what can I tell you? He's Derland Moore, Saints Hall of Famer. Brian Allee-Walsh,
62
Torrance
to
Small, again Trahan. We're at Broussard, 819 Conti, where the food's great, the company's terrific, and of course, this is where you need to be before all Saints games. Hope you will be. When we return in just a moment, it's the hot seat. Can a college offense work? On sportsNOLAtv. sportsNOLAtv trivia, and our question, as we posed earlier, Darren Sproles had 13 receptions against Carolina. Who holds the Saints single game record of 14 catches? Was it Reggie, Joe, Danny, or Tony? Last three Saints Hall of Famers. The answer is Tony Galbraith out of Missouri. Saints Hall of Famer. He had 14 catches in a Saints game against the Green Bay Packers. And Derland Moore would certainly remember that. Or maybe he won't. I don't know. He played defense. And those defensive guys, they don't even watch the offense play. They're on the bench talking about how they're going to kill the other team's offense while the game's going on. That's really kind of true, Derland. You don't really watch a whole lot of what's going on with the offense, right?
No. We're out there trying to figure out what we can do better.
You weren't talking football on the sidelines anyway, were you?
Oh, no. Sometimes the way we played, we weren't.
Trying to fill those lungs back up.
There you go. It is time now for our hot seat segment. This is where we put Brian Allee-Walsh on the hot seat with a topic of interest that we will debate feverishly. And our topic for today: can a college offense, the spread option offense principles, work in the NFL? Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, as always, Mr. Trahan. Well, I would say if you're playing the Saints, yes, it would work. It has worked. It will continue to work. But that said, I know it's kind of fashionable to play this with Tim Tebow last year, and you've got Michael Vick, and we've seen RG3 and now Cam Newton. There's some, yeah, absolutely. There's some excellent, gifted, athletic quarterbacks that are coming out of college, and you can see that offenses are being geared toward their strengths. That said, I just think that when you have such a big investment as your quarterback and you put him at high-risk situations with carrying the football. I watched Cam Newton yesterday. Hey, you know what? Cam Newton ran for what, 80 yards, 75 yards, 40 on one play. He's a gifted athlete. But so much can happen to you when you're running that option. And so I would say that, and that said, that it's a copycat league, and you're going to find defenses are going to defend them just like they do a vertical offensive scheme or anything else. So I think it's fashionable. I think it's something, the Wildcat is something you can throw at teams to kind of get them off their game plan, but ultimately you've still got to play professional football with multiple packages like the Saints and other teams do.
Yeah, I agree with you. Pretty soon the defense is going to catch up with it. They're going to get a lot of film. They're going to get a better understanding of it, and they will catch up with it because the NFL, the speed, the guys are much faster, a lot quicker, and a lot smarter. So, but with that said, I do think it can work in the NFL. All the time, no. With the right quarterback, with the right talent, Yes, it can. I think you sprinkle it in pretty much like you said. I don't think it should be a game plan exactly to go out and say, this is us, this is who we are. I don't think you can do that. Not in the NFL. Guys are way too fast and too smart.
Derland, you would be a good person to ask this because at Oklahoma, your offense was a vaunted wishbone that was as good as any college offense that tried to run those kind of principles as we've ever seen, and nobody could really stop that. This is a little different. It's spread option, but it's still option football. So what do you think about it on the NFL level?
On the NFL level, I mean, as a not as a mainstay, but as a change-up, yes. Yes, I think it would absolutely work. But, you know, the wishbone would still work right now, too. You know the reason they don't run it?
Can't recruit.
Can't recruit.
Exactly.
You cannot recruit. And that's honestly God's truth. Players want to go to a passing team where they learn how to pass, block. That's what the NFL looks for, is somebody to protect their quarterback. They're looking for a quarterback that can throw the ball because they're not going to get a decent quarterback unless they throw the ball. I mean, so they had, for recruiting purposes, they can't run the wishbone.
Well, I think one of the reasons for the spread is you can put a lot of talent out there. Guys don't have to come and sit down. You can use these talented guys. You can use them at receivers. You can use them at running back. You can use them at quarterback. You can use them in a lot of different places. So now I can play 5 guys instead of just putting 2 out there and having 3 sit on the bench that's very good that can help me play. Now I can play all these guys when I run the spread, and I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people are going to the spread offense.
I remember when Reggie Bush was here, and I asked the question a few times, was shot down in my typical fashion, is why wouldn't you use a player like Reggie or a Darren Sproles, you know, a guy that could possibly run a Wildcat, just to give that defense. I don't think you have to run it more than maybe one series, but give that opposing defense something to look at each week in their film room. They go, you know what, watch for this because the Saints are going to do it. The response to me was very simple. I'm not going to take the ball out of number 9's hands.
Yes, you always want the ball in your best player hands. But another thing you don't want your quarterback running around too much. You know, it's too much money. It's too much money invested into these guys.
Absolutely.
But when you do have a couple of these guys that can run the ball, they do know how to protect themselves. If you remember RG3, he ran a few times on us, but he got down. He was smart enough. He was smart enough to get down. And it takes
time now to render a judgment. The judge speaks. And listen, schemes are schemes and schemes are great. But in the NFL, with all of the outstanding coaches that exist, with all of the video that exists, they will figure things out, and they'll figure it out not only in due time, but pretty quickly. And with the kind of athletes that exist at this level, they will be able to slow this down and ultimately stop it and shut it down. I don't care how good of players you have, when you're limited as to what you can do. You talk about a simple read play. If the defensive end crashes, then you pull it out and keep it. If the defensive end stays home, you give it to the belly. Oh, but then again, if you have defensive interior linemen that can hold their ground, which we didn't see from the Saints yesterday, it won't matter because you're going to be able to stop that nonetheless. Look, it's about players and execution regardless of scheme. On a long-term basis, I agree with these guys. I think it's something nice to have if you have the personnel to do it, but it can't be primary in what we see. Listen, Robert Griffin III got the Saints sucked up, threw over the top, and beat them. And Cam Newton, well, he made some easy throws down the field to guys who were wide open, and then, of course, ran the ball at will when they wanted to. So it was pretty easy based on what they did because of execution and a lack of defensive play. It's a nice thing to have as part of the arsenal. On a long-term basis, I don't think so. Derland played with Archie Manning, who could run as good as anybody that ever played. Unfortunately, most of the time, he wasn't running by design. He was running for his life, and he got beat up unmercifully at that particular point in time. And even though he played, 14 years, 15 years, it shortened his career, or at least his effectiveness, because I think Archie would tell you over the last 2 or 3 years of his career, he wasn't the same player because of the injuries that he had sustained. So I think we all agree on this particular topic, but it will be intriguing going forward with the players we're talking about in the league. Hey, sportsNOLA.com is the place to go. When you go to the website, you want the best information, go to sportsNOLA.com. We're on Twitter @sportsNOLA, Facebook, sportsNOLA.com. You want information on the Saints, LSU, Tulane, Prep, the Hornets, the Voodoo, the Zephyrs, Tulane, I named them, UNO, Loyola, keep going. We got it all at sportsNOLA.com. Hope you'll go there. When we return in just a moment, we'll go to LSU, Tulane, and Prep as we continue with sportsNOLA TV from Broussard's. What's trending at sportsNOLA.com? The Saints and Panthers analysis. Brian Allee-Walsh, myself. You can read the coach Rick Gailey later on today as well. LSU and how they are now number 2. Guess who's number 1? We're right back where we started last year, right? First NBC video updates every day. Lenny Van Gilder and I have our analysis of the weekend and the most complete prep coverage anywhere, every sport, all the time at sportsNOLA.com. You need to go there. And don't forget Oktoberfest here at Broussard's, October 6th and 7th. They'll be hosting Oktoberfest here at Broussard's. Great food, an assortment of German beers on draft, and so much more here in the courtyard at Broussard's. You want to enjoy it? It's Oktoberfest. I'm sure you will do so. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLA.tv, and the LSU Tigers, as mentioned, are now number 2 in the nation in all polls after they basically vandalized the Vandals. I don't know, 63-14. It was 21-14 at one point, so you do the math. They scored 42 unanswered. LSU, 40 straight non-conference regular season wins. Kenny Hilliard, not Dalton Derland, 114 carries and 2 touchdowns. And then, of course, you got a replacement at safety out of White Castle, Ronald Martin, who did very well. And, of course, Edwards did the same thing. Interception returns for touchdowns. So the defense came through very well after scuffling a little bit in the first half. Looking at some of the highlights of the Tigers, Mettenberger can throw the routes, and he has some receivers to get downfield and get it like Shepard. And again, Brian, they're not throwing it a lot right now, but they can throw it. They can throw it clearly more than they could throw it previously with this kid.
And I'll tell you what, they've got such a great package. We alluded to it last week about how they do remind you of the New Orleans Saints when the New Orleans Saints are clicking. They've got so many weapons at running back. I've got a trivia question for you, Mr. Van Gilder. When was the last time an LSU running back scored 2 touchdowns in each of his first 3 games?
Wow, good question. Yeah.
We'll give the answer at the end of this little
got the answer.
vignette.
Okay, Torrance, they haven't been tested yet. They haven't played anybody thus far, but obviously they're pretty good.
Oh, very, very good. I think this team is offensively. We know they're better this year than they were last year. Defense is playing pretty good ball as well. I think they're just getting themselves prepped and getting ready for the big game right now. I think the games they had before them, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to blow teams out. They're getting better. They're getting a better understanding of one another. And we'll see once they get into the SEC playing.
And that's Kenny Hilliard there, Derland, just running over a tackler. And even though he's that big, he has the speed to finish the run. That's pretty impressive, isn't it?
They're loaded with talent. I mean, they can keep coming at you and coming at you and coming at you. And basically, if you're going to win a championship, you've got to come from the bench because you've got to be able to replace people that get hurt. And they got a bench.
Well, they do. And as far as Tulane is concerned, the Green Wave off this past week, and they're back in action. A Saturday morning special in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome against the Ole Miss Rebels. Archie will be there. He's looking forward to it, among others, this Saturday morning. And, of course, our thoughts and prayers remain with Devon Walker of Tulane. And we have to be responsible in what we report. We can't tell you anything more other than to continue to pray for him and his family. And ultimately, doctors will take care of whatever can be taken care of and announce whatever is to be announced, Brian. You can't be premature about anything. You can only be responsible in a circumstance like this.
Kenny said it very eloquently. I mean, I know the panelists and everyone involved in this show prays for Devon and his family, and we hope for the best. On a lighter note, the answer to the trivia question is Charles Alexander in 1978. Yes, and but you're right. And you know what? I wonder if that week. You wonder about the week off. I think it came at a real good time for this football team to collect itself. It's such an emotional time for everybody in the Tulane family and anybody that has children that plays football, Derland. These are issues that you have to deal with as parents all the time, and I think that week off came at a good time.
Yeah, I think it was great. It was great for the team, but it's great for his family as well. Give them an opportunity to take in all the support that they're getting, because they're getting a lot of support right now, and to take it in and to be thankful. And we all have our prayers here with the family and also with the team, and it gives the team opportunity to sit back and gather themselves as well, because when you have a teammate that goes down like that, it kind of hits home with you, because you put yourself in those situations sometime, and you have to kind of block that out and continue to play. And I think this was the perfect time to have this bye week.
And Derland, Jack Tatum notwithstanding, the person that hits the guy inadvertently and accidental, I mean, it's something that's hard to get over. It stays with you for a long time, doesn't it?
Well, I've been on the receiving end and the giving end of both of them. One of them, we were playing the Atlanta Falcons, and I was ducking. One of his blockers was coming at me, and I ducked it underneath, and I fell right on Steve Barkowski's knee, ripped it all up. I mean, it was season ending for him. And I mean, just things happen. It's a contact sport. You're going to have injuries. That's the nature of the beast. But you just, you hope and pray that nobody gets hurt bad. I mean, that's the deal. But it is a contact sport, no matter how mild they try to make it. I mean, there's no way. I mean, you got big, strong, competitive men out there, and they're coming.
Well, big shout out to Tulane, and our hearts are with you, the entire university, the entire family, the Walker family, Coach Johnson, and everyone there. High school football, another great weekend, and you talk about a great performance. Our sportsNOLA.com, New Orleans quarterback club, WGSO 990 AM Prep Player of the Week, Jesuit quarterback Tanner Lee, a Tulane commitment. You won't believe these numbers. 56-49 win over Archbishop Shaw. Lee was 23 of 33, 532 yards, 7 touchdowns, both school records, no interceptions. As I mentioned, Jesuit won 56-49. He's 6'4", 196 pounds, pure pro-style quarterback who has a really good arm, very good touch, good size. I think Tulane's getting a steal here in terms of a pro-style quarterback. Congratulations to Tanner Lee. He will be honored at our year-end New Orleans Quarterback Club luncheon, which Derland spoke at earlier today. And, of course, we have high school football and WHNO 7 games this year. We've had our 2 games thus far, Jesuit Holy Cross, and this past weekend, now the #1 team in America, the John Curtis Patriots of J.T. Curtis, taking on East St. John at Amos Bernalino Stadium. This is an awesome team, Torrance, and I know you're very familiar with them. And they can do it throwing the ball here with Patrick Morton and speed. Look at that, down the field. You think of them as just being able to run the ball, right? Think again.
Oh, they right now, they can pass, they can run, and they also play special teams, Kenny. This is a great team. Total balance. Oh, look at this. Here's speed.
Looks like the Saints defense. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, black and gold. Hey,
well,
you take it.
Well, Brian, let me say this. Brian, that's East St. John, and they endured so much during the storm. They lost everything. And speaking of the Saints stepped up and donated all kinds of uniforms and equipment to them. Kudos to the New Orleans Saints, and God bless East St. John High School and Coach Phil Benko.
Yeah, our volleyball team at Ben Franklin played out at Riverside last week, and they endured some troubles from the storm as well. And you realize it does put things in perspective, what is important when you see what a storm can do, and in that case, East St. John. Well,
some prep notes of interest as we promote prep football like nobody else at sportsNOLA.com. Rummel rolling over St. Augustine, and they whipped them 42-18. The Raiders #1 in 5A and deserving. Jesuit and Shaw, as we mentioned, lining up the scoreboard in a 56-49 game. John Curtis #1, Rivals.com. And, of course, we have a tie with Rummel and Barb atop the 5A rankings at our poll at sportsNOLA.com. And this week's big game, Salmon and Carr. You talk about a good one. Woo! A 4A showdown at Berman Stadium on Friday night. We got more high school football and WHNO. Stay tuned, watch sportsNOLA.com, and you'll find out more about that because we got a bunch forthcoming. And we got a bunch more to come. We're not done yet. From Broussard at 819 Conti in the historic French Quarter. We'll return in just a moment to break down what's coming up in the week that is the NFL here on sportsNOLAtv. Broussard's here at 819 Conti. You see the contact information. Come on by before the Saints and the Chiefs game, and you'll have an outstanding egg omelet, hamburgers, and much more here at Broussard's. Oktoberfest coming up. That's October 6th and 7th, Saturday and Sunday here at Broussard's. All kinds of food and drink on hand, and the food grilled in the courtyard, and the fee just $10 for adults. Children come free, costume contest, and more at Broussard's 819 Conti. And we're pleased to be here with sportsNOLA.tv. And our first NBC Prep Showcase continues. Our next broadcast, Riverside Rebels of Bill Stubbs against those John Curtis Patriots of J.T. Curtis, Saturday, September the 29th at 4 p.m. here on WHNO Channel 20. Tune in if you want to see some great coaches, great programs, and a great team in Curtis, obviously. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLA.tv, the Saints and the Chiefs. It's Saints Alumni Weekend, Hall of Fame Weekend in the Superdome. A lot of alumni back in town. They'll be recognized at the game. Tom Benson, Deuce McAllister being inducted into the Saints Hall of Fame. Jim Henderson receiving the Joe Gemelli Fleur-de-Lis Award. Okay, both teams giving up a bunch of points. Both teams 0-2. What do you think, Derland?
I think you got two teams in search of their identity right now, and there's no doubt in my mind that the Saints are going to reorganize. They're going to come after them. The Saints are going to win big this week.
Torrance?
I just like to see guys play with a little bit more passion. I like from the start. I don't want you to get hit in the mouth and then say, let's start the play. I want to see them come out from the jump like we used to during that Super Bowl run. They came out and they hit teams first. I want to see them come out and hit this team first.
Right.
Kenny, seldom after 2 games and approaching a 3rd game here, can you say this is a must game? This is a must game for New Orleans. New Orleans can ill afford to go down 0-3 going to Green Bay next week.
Yeah, I agree. This is a must win. This is not 2007. The Chiefs aren't very good, and they're coming here. And if the Saints are ever going to be motivated to win, this would be the week. I think they get it done and get to 1-2, but then it's problematic. So we'll see, but I do like them to win. Derland Moore, it's been a distinct pleasure. Great to have you with us again, my friend.
Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Torrance Small, thank you.
Brian
Allee-Walsh,
Yes.
great to have you with us. Want to thank Adam and Andrew and Lenny and the entire crew for a job well done, and thank Broussard for having us. Until next week, I'm Ken Trahan. Thanks for joining us. Be a good sport. God bless you one and all. Rounding third and heading home. So long.